And welcome back. I'm Dylan Black. Statistics Canada have been around for 100 years. Congratulations. With us right now, a Director General with Statistics Canada. It's Rancourt. And nice to have you on the show.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell us exactly what your role is then as a Director General?
Yes, I'm responsible for all types of data that come in other ways than surveys, and also responsible for archives and history of Statistics Canada.
So you must love numbers.
Oh yes,
yeah.
StatsCan is 100 years and counting.
Impressive that it's been around for 100 years now. Can you tell us what were statistics all about before 1918? How were they kept? How were they kept so people knew what was going on?
Yes, in the history of the world, man has always been interested in gathering information. And in Canada, in the early days, in the 17th century, Jean Talon actually conducted a census of the early settlers. So basically, it was a census of the cities of Montreal, Trois-Rivières, and Quebec. And at that time, population of Canada was about 3,215 or something like that for early settlers from Europe.
Okay, and one of your main buildings actually named after Jean Talon as well.
Yes,
okay.
It's in his honor.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so then how was Statistics Canada created then, 1918? Why did all of a sudden they say, you know, we need to create this organization, this foundation?
Right. So there was the Confederation in 1867, and then there was even further need to understand the country, the people, the land, and all that. So there was a census in 1871 and every 10th year after. But in the early 1900s, all departments needed statistics on labor, trade, commerce, people, and all that. So it was so decentralized that it was difficult to get a coherent plan or coherent picture of Canada. So in 1912, there was a commission struck to assess what it would mean to have a centralized organization that gathers statistics. And so that commission in 1912 recommended the creation of a statistical office. And then there was the First World War, so there was a little bit of delays. And then in 1918, the Dominion Bureau of Statistics was created.
Okay, so the World Wars then, they caused an issue when it came to keeping statistics, I guess, in place?
Well, it actually caused the delay from the time of the report in 1912 till creation of StatCan. But then after the First World War, there was lots of displacement of people and reorganization of the country. So there was an increased need of information for decision makers and Canadian citizens. And so Statistics Canada was not the response to the after-war efforts, but it was part of the response to understand the country and organize society.
Okay, so 100 years, I mean, there have to have been all kinds of different developments. So what has changed throughout the years when it comes to statistics keeping?
Yes, there was a lot that was thanks to the census. So in early days, the census were door-to-door by hand. And then we introduced the idea of cards that were easy on which it was easy to enter information. And these could be translated into punch cards. So that was quite novel in the early 1900s, the punch cards. And then with the advent of computers in the 50s and 60s, automated processing of the data was also something that took place. And all the way up to telephone interviews and internet response in the 80s and 90s and to this day. And so there was other developments. After the Second World War, actually, it was even more important to understand how do the soldiers get back in the country and how do they enter the labor force, what's happening to all the people that were working in manufacturers. So it was important to understand the country as a whole and create a systematic way of analyzing. And that's when the early pieces and big developments of the national accounting was put in place so that economists could actually act on what's happening underlying the society rather than just suffer it or live with it.
So years back, I mean, a lot of this was done by handwriting as well. Would that have been difficult to keep and decipher, to figure out exactly what the handwriting was all about?
That was an issue. That's why the idea of cards were created so that people could just tick some marks, and that was transferred into cards that were read by computers automatically.
Okay. What are some of the statistics that are kept when it comes to just keeping statistics in general? What are the main ones?
Yes. We're in the business of measuring society, and society evolves, so we've got statistics on pretty much everything: people, the land, the economy, language, income, prices, whether people are at work, exchange between countries, Canada and another country, wholesale, retail, it's the whole spectrum.
Okay, and this is all pretty much kept through the census that comes out.
The census is one big piece.
Is that the biggest piece?
It's the biggest piece that takes place every 5th year. And then there are social surveys or social programs to gather information about the people. And then there's an economic program to gather information about the trade, the exchanges, and the economy as a whole. Okay. And there's also environmental statistics for the land and the country.
Okay, so 100 years, what are you doing to help celebrate, or to celebrate all this fun?
It was actually kicked off by Her Excellency and Governor General Julie Payette on March 16th. And throughout the year, there's going to be activities, data products. We're actually going to produce a book about the history. And if you want more, you can always visit the StatScan website. Okay.
Yourself, when it comes, because you've made this your life, what's your favorite statistic?
I like to always follow how population evolves. Like I said earlier, 3,000 in 1600 at that time, 8 million at the creation of StatCan, 21 million 50 years after, and now 36 going 37 million soon.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff. Eric Rancourt, thank you very much from Statistics Canada.
My pleasure.
Engineering students coming up, joining us on Daytime Ottawa in moments.